Hey, what's up y'all? It's Jodo Jake and welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're going to talk about Scarlet and Violet illustration rares that I think are quite surprising. We're going to look at everything from Scarlet and Violet base all the way through Shrouded Fable. I decided not to include Stellar Crown just because there's not a lot of sales data on graded cards. But yeah, let's just jump right into it. Alright, so we're on Pokedata's site, and first off we're going to start with Scarlet and Violet base. I have Ralts right here, so this is the first card I wanted to talk about. So right now Ralts is selling for about $16 raw, and in a PSA 10 it's selling for about $200. I think at its high it was at around $245, and the pop is quite low for a modern card at $206 in a PSA 10. So I think there's a few reasons for that in terms of the reason why the pop is low. Pop's low because Scarlet and Violet base quality, from my experience sourcing cards, was pretty rough. And I think that goes for Paldea Evolved and especially Obsidian Flames. I had a hard time sourcing a lot of the special illustration rares from Obsidian Flames just because of whitening and edges issues. It was quite troubling. But yeah, so Ralts, great card. I think it looks great when you grade these sequentially with Ralts, Kirlia, and Gardevoir EX together. I truly think that you can get a premium when you're selling those together. It also just looks great sequential as a collector, just to have on display. So it's kind of a win-win either way. I always find it surprising when there's such a big gap between these cards raw and the graded price, but I think Ralts is a great card that you should start grading. Next up, we have Drowsy. This is a favorite of mine, Kamiya artwork. Very creepy, but I feel like it's very fitting for Drowsy. Right now it's selling for about $13, and in a 10 it's going for about $155. Pop is still pretty low, just a few more than the Ralts at $209. Another large margin between raw and graded. If you hit a 10 on this, that's a good premium, and I'm definitely looking to grade some of these. I have one copy in my binder that I think is a genuine 10, so if I can find a few more, I'll send out the gradable copies, try to make the play. Next up, we're going to talk about Paldea Evolved. Now, I'm trying to avoid talking about Magikarp too much because that card has been talked about on every PokeTuber's channel. Beautiful art. Shinji Kanda is an incredible artist. Every art they seem to touch is expensive. So yeah, the reason why I brought this card up is because in a PSA 10, the pop is $12.99. Now, a lot of people have brought up the fact that this card is hard to grade, and it may in fact be. But when we compare it to the next two cards that I wanted to show from Paldea Evolved, you're going to find it quite interesting. So this card is 112 raw and almost $570, $568 in a PSA 10. And the pop, like I said, is $12.99. If we look at Heracross, which is like a favorite of mine. I absolutely love Heracross. It's probably my favorite bug type Pokemon. I love this artwork. The colors are just beautiful. But looking at this, I noticed that the price was about $12 to $13 ungraded, and in a 10 it's about $170. But what really caught my interest was the pop. So if we look at it right now, the pop is 78. That is really low for a modern card. Now, you look to grade that's still a great margin. It's similar to the Drowsy. You're making good money if you're selling these in PSA 10 and you source these raw. The next one is even crazier. So Meryl, I love this artwork. It reminds me of the Altart Vaporeon VMAX from Sword and Shield, just because it's like obviously in the ocean. You have all of these different Pokemon in the background. It's just awesome. This card is around $10 to $11 in a raw form. In a 10, it's only got one sold, and that was for, let's see, $62. Now, what I thought was really crazy was the pop on this. This is a pop 37 in a PSA 10. So I decided to look at eBay And when looking at eBay, there's only one listing for an English PSA 10 Merrill illustration rare. Now, $499 is quite expensive. Please do not buy this. Please do not spend $500 on this card. Go find a few and try to grade it yourself. Looking at the last solds, there was a $199 best offer, a $110 best offer. See if there's any more. A $110 best offer. That was a 9. This one sold for $230 or best offer. $250. Yeah, this card is expensive in a 10. Pop 37 confirmed here on PSA's site. Next up, we have Obsidian Flames, and we're going to talk about Scizor. Scizor is just a fan favorite, and this artwork is just badass. Totally does Scizor justice. For $5 raw, it's a steal, and in a 10, it's about $116, which is still pretty cheap for it being a Pop 256. I had a hard time finding gradable copies of Obsidian Flame singles. I think that has some of the worst print quality out of all of Scarlet and Violet. But if you could find them, definitely send it off to PSA or BGS, CGC, whatever you prefer. Next up, we got Ninetales, another beautiful Pokemon, beautiful artwork, Kanto, can't go wrong. For about $12, you can get it raw, and in a PSA 10, it's about $118. Highly recommend finding this and grading them. I think this card will perform well in the long run. Steelix. Now, I'm biased. I love Steelix for a few reasons, and this art specifically because my father was he's a retired ironworker, and this just reminds me of him. So I'm actually thinking about this weird idea of having him sign a copy of this to put in the binder. Yeah, it might be weird, but yeah, I just would love to have that. Right now it's selling for about $19 raw, in a 10 about $80. This might be a card that's if you, as a collector, you'd probably just want to just pick it up in a 10. It's quite cheap for that price. Paradox actually did have some fairly good print quality, so if you can find gradable copies, I always prefer to grade my own cards as much as I can, because I mean, you get the satisfaction of grading your own card, but also you save a lot more money and just optimize your collection. So yeah, if you can find this and grade it, definitely do it. But if you're looking to buy to flip, the margins are fairly thin. So, I mean, you'll still make some money, but I feel like there's other cards that provide you with better margins. Next up from Paradox Rift, we have Yveltal. Beautiful artwork. I'm more of a Xerneas fan, but I can't deny that this artwork is pretty dope. Right now it's going for about 14 raw, and in a PSA 10, about $77. This is a similar situation as the Steelix. I think that if you're looking to buy a 10, you might as well just buy it at that price. Really cheap. Pop's still fairly low, and you could grade it, but I wouldn't recommend this as like a grading flip play. Next up, we have Temporal Forces. We're going to talk about the Ghastly. I feel like every PokeTuber has probably talked about this, so I might as well do it myself. This card was going for some crazy prices when the set came out. People were talking about buyouts, manipulating the market. Without that, I still think this card would do really well. Maybe not go as crazy as it did. It's very rare that you get an entire evolution line in one artwork. And of all Pokemon, it's Gengar. You get Ghastly, Haunter, and Gengar with like this scared Meowth in the background or in the foreground. It's just such an epic artwork. Right now, you can get it for $24. In a PSA 10, it's about $112, $113. This card was selling for about $300 at one point. So I think that now is a great time to be either buying these cards raw and grading them, or if you just want one copy and you're not looking to grade it, buy it for $100, $115. That's a great price. Next up, we have Metagross from Temporal Forces. This is another unique card. I love when artists take Pokemon outside of their normal environment, and this is definitely a playful one. Right now it's going for about $10. In a PSA 10, it's going for about $72. Another card similar to the Steelix, you could just, if you're as a collector, this is a good time to be buying PSA 10s for these cards. If you're looking to flip, it's probably not the best grading play. There's several cards on this list that I think you can do much more with. That being said, I do think this card will do really well in the long run. Metagross is like a pseudo legendary. People love this Pokemon, so I think that, you know, in time this card will be good to have. Next up, we're going into Twilight Masquerade Eevee. We got 9 Eevees. Something fun about this this artwork is I always had the idea that they were kind of hinting at what the next evolution is, and there's this one Eevee right here playing with the Hydreigon plushie, and I think that could be hinting at a dragon type evolution. Who knows? That's just me guessing, but I wanted to throw it out there in case it did happen. I have proof that I thought about it. Anyways, this card's going for about $47, and in a PSA 10, it's about $148. This is one of those cards that you can't go wrong buying raw or buying in a 10 right now. I still think that, you know, this card will do really well. Evolutions are known to do really well. We'll just look at Evolving Skies, and we'll be getting prismatic evolutions or evolutions, something like that. That's the new set coming out in January. That's going to be crazy if it's what we think it is. And yeah, I think that buying these at $47 is pretty high in terms of like illustration rares. There's quite a few illustration rares that you can get sub $5, sub $10. But it's Eevee. What else can I say? I definitely think that this card has a lot of opportunity in the future. Next up from Twilight Masquerade, we have Chansey. Love this artwork, love Chansey. I love seeing multiple Kanto Pokemon. We have Snorlax, Bellsprout, Ditto, Psyduck. Such a great card, and it's really cheap right now. So in a 10, it's only $48, and its raw price is 10 bucks. So like, just buy the 10. Like, you're spending like nearly $30 on grading this card. And if it comes back a 9, you're out of luck. You're cracking it and putting it back in the binder. Might as well just buy it for that cheap. I actually bought one of these in a 10 from a friend of mine for like $45. Definitely think that this card is worth just picking up in a 10 as a collector. Next up, we have Shrouded Fable, the last set we're going to talk about. In this Persian, another Kanto Pokemon. This card is going for about $32 in raw price, and in a 10, it's like $171. The card has been pretty stable. I feel like at release, yeah, $158 at release, and it's now $171 now. It went all the way up to over $200 and came all the way down. I think $159 was the cheapest, which is interesting. Typically, we see the opposite. This card is definitely worth grading right now, just based on the PSA price. Whether you want to flip it or just add it to the collection at $32, it's not so bad. And last up is Houndoom. This is one of my favorite illustration rares. I love the colors on this. The colors kind of remind me of the Galarian Moltres from Chilling Reign. The artwork is just so awesome. And to know that, you know, it's only going for $27 and a 10 is going for about $180, I think this is another grade play. But this is the last card, but I also wanted to say that there are a few cards you can do this with, what I'm about to mention, and that's sequentially grading. So if you weren't aware, there was a Houndour illustration rare in Obsidian Flames. Now, I would highly recommend picking this up for $3 or $4 if you could find a gradable copy, and then grading it with the Houndoom so that you have them sequentially. Typically, collectors like to have cards graded sequentially. It's just a nice pairing. Some people do it with what I've seen lately is the Gold Star dogs. Like, people want those graded sequentially. It's just nice to have. It's a nice to have as a collector, and typically comes with a premium when you're selling. So that concludes my video for today. I hope you found some of these as surprising as I did. Meryl being a pop 37 and Chansey being a $40 to $50 PSA 10 is just beyond me. One thing I want to note is that the reprint window is approaching, so we might see a lot of these sets getting reprinted. So we might see cheaper prices for these singles in the coming months. So I would keep an eye on that. And yeah, if there's any illustration rares that I missed in this list, please let me know in the comments. And yeah, until then, I'll see you in the next one. Peace.